If you are a leader interested in strategic innovation, or if you are a student or a designer interested in learning how to innovate with speed and simplicity, or if you are a startup interested in learning your value and opportunity in the marketplace, then these videos are definitely for you. Hey guys, Bernard Schockman here. I promised to bring you a bunch of videos this month on design thinking, all about design thinking. I'm located in Australia in an area called Queensland, on the coast of Queensland, called the Gold Coast. Now I'm actually in an area, a town in the Gold Coast, or along the Gold Coast region, called Tweed Heads. And what you can see in the background there is Tweed Head River, but what you can't see, which is just over the horizon there, are 5 of the key surf beaches here. We've got Kira Beach, Coolangatta, Rainbow, Fingal Head and Durumbar, some beautiful surf beaches here. So I'm here to talk to you today about standard design thinking versus what we've been practicing, which is Billboard Design Thinking over the last few years. Now, when anyone talks about design thinking, essentially what they're talking about is workshops. Now, the whole idea of workshops, obviously, is you're sharing information, you're having conversations, and you're collaborating, all to achieve a result at the end, or an outcome at the end. Now, in standard design thinking, what we have is if you were to do some research on Google on design thinking, you would see a couple of images that come up quite often. They're a beehive-looking hexagonal diagram with 5 points in it: empathise, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Now, let's just dive quickly into each of those points. If we're talking about empathizing, what we're really doing is we're talking about connecting with users. We're talking about surveys, we're talking about interviews, we're talking about questionnaires, etc. Discovering the problem space, understanding the problem space. When we get into the define stage, what we're actually doing is we're trying to define or identify the right problem first, and then articulate it or define that problem precisely. Words carry energy, so the way that we actually define that problem can be very different depending on the words that we choose for it. So the third stage in traditional design thinking or standard design thinking is ideate. So once we understand the problem space and the problem we're solving, it's about ideating or finding solutions or ideas. You know, what can we do to solve this problem? What does it look like? And that quite often is Crazy Eights, or what we call design studios, but that's all about sketching solutions or solution ideas. And once we get to the next stage, which is prototype, it's like, okay, well, let's build something, let's put something together, even if it's only with sticky tape, blue tack, straws, paper, whatever it might be, but let's look at what it might physically look like if we build a prototype. And of course, the difference between ideation or sketching and a prototype is that in ideation, what we're doing is it's almost like we're looking at a picture. So we're seeing things in 2 dimensions, where when we are prototyping, we're creating what I guess you would call sculptures. And we're able to view that sculpture from multiple perspectives. And that's the value of going to a prototyping stage rather than just sketching. Okay, and the final stage is when we're testing it. So we know that we can, if we get the right people around the table, we get the right stakeholders, we can actually create some good ideation or sketches or some prototypes, but we really need to test it with users. And this is where the final stage in design thinking comes into play. Let's test that with real users, because we know we are somewhat right, but when we test it with users, they tell us what areas we need to tweak up in order to make it fantastic for them, a great experience. Okay, so that's standard design thinking. In Billboard Design Thinking, we still run through that same process, but the way we execute the workshop is somewhat different. And I think we gained this knowledge after executing these workshops again and again and again. So we actually run through a slightly different process, I guess, in the workshops, or this is the workshop process we run through. It's prepare, design, conduct, document or report, and follow up. So in a Billboard design, what will happen is when you're preparing, you're doing somewhat the same thing, I guess. You're doing your surveys, you're doing your interviews, you're doing your questionnaires, you're understanding the problem space so that you can design, which is the next step, design your billboard. Now, the billboard is let's call it a sequence of communication and activity templates, where what we're looking to do is to extract information that we need from a group of people and stack that information one on top of the other, so that as we go through this workshop, the reason or the value of the solution we're driving towards becomes more and more compounded as we drive along this workshop, because every previous piece of that billboard, every previous piece of that building block then compounds to create the next level. And so when we get to the end, we drive to the solution, it becomes, this is the only way we really can do it. It becomes very, what's the word for it? It becomes very conclusive that this is the right way to do it. Okay, so after we conduct the workshop and we actually get the right participants into that workshop, we run through the billboard sequence one template at a time to extract that data, and then we drive to the end. It's about, okay, now we've got the result, we understand what the solution or solutions could be for this particular problem or challenge. The next stage is about, okay, well, let's document a report. In that report, we would pull out the particular insights that we identified within that workshop. We would then also identify maybe an experienced design or a design. We'd lean towards a high-level design. What does that look like? And this would be something that all of the participants in the workshop agreed to. The big value of doing the billboard is that you get multiple perspectives in on the challenge or the problem, and you get every stakeholder gets to view that particular problem or challenge from multiple stakeholder viewpoints. The final stage in our Billboard Design Thinking is following up, or actually helping drive that business case forward for that organization to get that particular initiative or project done or initiated. Okay, so we've been talking about standard design thinking in relation to our billboard design thinking and the value of just design thinking in itself, but also the value of billboard design thinking. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.